Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm your host, Dr. Haider Shah. On behalf of Calvos, I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. Today we have another very interesting topic, and I'm really honored to welcome and introduce our distinguished guest speaker who is going to talk about writing papers in Scopus as well as in Web of Science indexing. Crafting a research papers are the most difficult part in the publication, and that meet the criteria for indexing in two prominent academic databases that are Scopus and Web of Science, which requires the essential aspect to be considered. The aim of this session is to provide researcher, academics, and students with valuable insights into the strategies, techniques, and guidelines necessary to optimize their scholarly writing process and enhance their visibility and impact of their research. So, indeed, a very interesting topic. I'm sure you will learn a lot from this session because we have an expert with us in today's this session. So stay tuned because an amazing stuff are coming ahead in this session. So before we start, I would like to thank Carlos for arranging such enlightenment sessions for their support and providing us such a wonderful platform. The aim of Carlos is to give you the opportunity to connect and interact with world-renowned speakers, academic leaders, teachers, authors, experts, institutional professionals, and businessmen to learn from their recommendations, suggestions, and tips which will create an impact and will enable you to learn and develop yourself in order to grow and transform individually as well as to contribute to the world in a positive way. As our slogan is come, learn, and share knowledge. So today we have a very popular guest on our show because he has conducted more than three sessions with us on different and wonderful topics, and I'm sure you are familiar with him. And we have introduced him multiple times. So this time we will not waste the time while introducing him. We will directly go and welcome to the our guest, who is a wonderful speaker, author, teacher, researcher, professional, and above everything, a great human being. So please once again help me in welcoming our guest, Professor FROILAN MOBO. Welcome to the Carvas platform, and thank you very much once again for providing us such a opportunity to learn from you, Prof.
Yes, thank you for inviting me once again, Dr. Ryder. It's a good opportunity for me to share my ideas and test my skills in research and publication.
Thank you so much. And a gentle reminder to the audience that Prof will be presenting and he would leave time for question answer session at the end of the session. So over to you, Prof. Thank you.
Yes, so good evening, ladies and gentlemen from around the globe. So mabuhay and magandang gabi. Okay, so my task for today about to discuss about writing papers for Scopus and Web of Science indexing or WOS. So this is an important topic nowadays because this pertain on how scholarly you are in terms of writing and publishing research articles. So let me start with this part. So So the first part is why WOS and Scopus. Of course, when we say Web of Science Scopus, they are one of the biggest platforms with active features to, of course, to help us enhance in terms of research and publication because these things has a bigger library in terms of course, impact factor, in terms of citation. So this one can help us, of course, in terms of recognizing how reputable our publication is in terms of for example, for academic promotions or other related concerns with regards to publications. And of course, part of it, the advantages of the Web of Science was, of course, you can unmatch quality control. So part of it, we know that when we submit papers on Web of Science, it will really give both platforms provide high quality articles that can run through a particular output, which is can give emphasis on different areas, not only in social and natural science, but in other areas that will be based on rigorous criteria for confirming publication, sometimes in other journals, which is based on Web of Science. And under the Web of Science, there are some branches which can be considered for the social science and other areas for the Web of Science. So part of it, it's very important, of course, to consider how to check the quality control of when we write papers. Another is, of course, this is an effective evaluation tool, of course, the impact factor, because we are using SJR. When we use part of it, it's always available on the web, which is we frequently used to assess the significance of a journal in comparison of others. Because right now, in terms of impact factor, there are a lot of factor which is it is really fake because they are only after with the amount of money. Well, in fact, if you're going to check the evaluation tool of the Web of Science, it's really applicable, and it's really you will be able to uh, be aware of what is the significance of your high impact factor and the number of citations that you have gained. And of course, part of it, the Web of Science offers a wide selection of prospective international publications, just like what I mentioned, from social science to down to historical perspective. So it is really important to check, of course, the indexing and the advantage of the Web of Science. Because, for example, like in the Philippines right now, one of the priorities for criteria for evaluation in terms of faculty ranking or promotion is we consider the indexing of a journal publication. And part of it, of course, which provides data going back, of course, part of it is making it valuable for those looking, of course, into important trends in terms of, for example, not only in historical but in other areas in social science, which can use a synchronization of other platforms. And then, of course, user can easily arrange the references and citations data within the Web of Science, of course, platform. You can easily use it using EndNote. So it's really a platform wherein you can easily submit, and also part of the peer reviewer, it can easily be peer reviewed. Then they can easily submit it using the platform that they have. And you can also, another good advantage for the this platform, which is run under the Web of Science part, sometimes it can give credits, of course, on the reviewer. So it's a good part of it. That's why a lot of authors sometimes they prefer to review articles which is indexed preferably in Web of Science or some others in Scopus. So those are advantages or benefit that we will be able to gain when we publish or write papers which can be published in the Web of Science and Scopus indexing. Of course, another advantage is the Scopus. So it boasts a larger database with more scholarly articles and cross-disciplinary content than the Web of Science. So, which means that part of the advantage of Scopus, of course, is uh, it has a huge library which can uh, partner, for example, with other databases, which is very well known. For example, we have Science Direct, which is one part of it, and other partners, which is also part of the Scopus. Then, of course, the interface that is in one of the benefit by using Scopus is you can simply navigate and search options by an interface that is appealing, of course, to a lot of scholars. And then the detailed citation statistics, which is also the same with Web of Science SJR. So of course, you will be able to know the number of citations, the H index, and the quantity and the average number of citations per document, just like the same with Web of Science and Google Scholar. So those are the advantages of Scopus in terms of indexing. But guys, be sure that when you submit your papers in a scholarly publications, which is indexed in Scopus, you should always be aware, of course, on the part of their uh, articles which is being uploaded. You have to check if the journal is still active or it's still being considered also, or it's already being discontinued. So you have to check the status if they are still, of course, uh, matching the standards of a particular Scopus indexing database. And of course, part of it, you can look up on the impact factor of a journal. So a journal's impact factor, for example, that is based on Scopus or of Science. So it will depend on the number of publications which is being cited in a particular year. That's the reason why most of the journals, they're really blessed, because if the journal is being cited for how many times, so which means that it can give uh, a measurement or give an impact on the journal, especially if that is indexed on the Web of Science or Scopus. Okay, so it's better to check first the impact factor if it's really authentic. Okay, so do not be fooled in other indexing that as an impact factor, because there are a lot of fraud impact factor right now that sometimes they are just after with the money. But if you're going to check the credibility of the Web of Science and Scopus, definitely they're really authentic in the sense that they will be able to give you an emphasis that the journal is still active or it's being discontinued. So of course, citation metrics is of course this can assess the scholarly work of an scholar. It can measure how often the articles are being included in the reference list of other publication. For example, if your paper is being published in a high reputable journal and it's being indexed, for example, in Scopus or Web of Science, so definitely it will be able to give you all the number of citations on the number of each index. Then, of course, your primary goal is for other scholars to read your output, your article. Then, part of it, you will be able to get citations coming from those authors, and then it will give a high emphasis that you are interested in that area. And of course, however, when considering any citations metric, you should be aware that citations are not necessarily a measure of quality. But of course, you have to consider that it should always be authentic. Okay, you should be careful of fraud or predator journals, which sometimes they are saying that they're indexed with this and with this one. They have uh, a high impact factor of this value, but be sure to check the exact uh, data, because on my side, I always check the credibility, the criteria, if they still met the standard of a particular journal. And of course, citations level may be influenced by a journal's readership. That's why it's very important and it's okay when your article is being published in a high reputable journal, because it will easily, especially if that is an open access, the more of chances is being cited in your journal, the bigger, of course, especially if that's published in an open access. Okay. Of course, the impact factor is it's an easiest way to define the impact factor in a bibliometrics. That's why in the standard of uh, Scopus in Web of Science, usually they double check all the review processes. If they have meet the standards, usually it will be able to gain you a lot of months of preparation, a lot of weeks of expecting if the article was uploaded in those databases. Of course, impact factor represents how many times the content published in a period of sometimes 2 years for specific journal which is being cited. And of course, to be more precise, because a journal's annual impact factor is being calculated by dividing the total number of times the articles from previous 2 years have been cited. It's very important to double check always. Not only that you have seen that the journal is indexed in Scopus, but if you are not aware of it, definitely you will be able to suffer. Okay, so you have to double check the library if they're still active. So of course, what is the index and the impact factor? Of course, the impact factor or journal impact factor of an academic journal is sometimes it's being uh, measured, calculated by Claribits that will be able to reflect the year mean, number of citations of articles published in the last 2 years in a given journal, which is being indexed by the Claribits Web of Science. That's why it's very important when you write your article, it should be, of course, being patronized by other database which is connected from within your particular area. But be careful on that from time to time. So how do you calculate the H index? The H index is a measure of the number of publications published as well as number of they are cited. The number of publications with a citation number greater than or equal to H index. For example, 15 publications cited 15 times or more. It's a high is an H index or high index of this values. It's very important to calculate it truly. Okay. And then what is index citation for research paper? Citation indexing makes links people, books, and journals that were written in a past, and they will be able to cite from other examples. They will be able to share their own thoughts and ideas because these are techniques that allows us to trace the use of an idea in a older practices and traditions. So those are important things that they need to consider, and of course, it's very important that we have this process. That's why how impact factors being calculated. It is being calculated by dividing the number of current year citations to the source items published in the journal during the previous years. So it's very important always to check if the journal is still active with the Web of Science or in the Scopus. So top indexing for journals, for example, just like what we have, the top two, we have Scopus under the Web of Science, Clarivate. We have the Science Citation Index expanded, the Social Sciences Citation Index, and the Arts of Human Citation Index, so which is being considered as one of the best indexing. So we have to check in all aspects if the article is really indexed or abstracted in Scopus or Web of Science because there are a lot of uh, followers. Sometimes they tend to pretend. Okay, so you should be careful in that. So of course, when we write a research article, the process of moving from idea to publish, especially if that is indexed in high uh, caliber indexing such as Scopus and Web of Science, so it will be a big help, of course, uh, for our area. Okay, and then of course you can determine the authors when designing a research project. It is better to recommend or preparing an initial list of other of authors, and from there we can list down everything which is being done, being processed by these particular people. So it's very important to determine how it will be affected, and of course, another, start writing before the experiment are completed. Start writing while you are still doing the experiments, and it's very important that you can realize that there are a lot additional experiments to run or additional contrasts that you need to add. And of course, reasons why paper is being rejected. Of course, sometimes not being motivated using references that are too old, or contributing institutions. So it's better to check everything, underlying problems. So it's normal to have underlying problems, but it's important that you can solve it easily. Then the subject has age, important positions are absent, and the ball and unethical behavior that will be able to help us in terms of identifying which is the best journal. And of course, selecting the right journal, understanding the indexing, the process of rating and classifying journals according to specific criteria, such as the following: caliber, applicability, and extent of published research. So it's very important to check the known indexing because it acts as a yardstick of evaluating a journal's dependability and influence. So it's very important to check it from time to time. So we have types of indexing. We have the Web of Science, we have the Scopus, we have the PubMed, which is, as you notice, it is very important to uh, do this type of indexing and identifying the following. Of course, evaluation ranking journals, sometimes they are ranking of journals, Web of Science Impact Factor, the Scopus, and the area, which is very important for us. So of course, publications, although patents, royalties, and other forms of applied research development are also of utmost consideration because they always think that uh, they are spending too much. But if you're going to analyze them, definitely, yeah, it's not possible. Okay, so it's very important to look for a authentic uh, uh, process for this kind of output. So we have, of course, already discussed the two biggest databases that can help us. Of course, we have that and other things that it needs to be fixed up. Okay, so so I think that would be all on my part. Here are my references. So with that invitation, thank you for inviting me. I do hope that I have helped a lot of scholars and of course groups of people that will be able to learn from how to in submit papers in a Scopus and Web of Science uh, tool.
Yes, thank you very much, Prof. Really wonderful. The way you just explain what is the Scopus, what are the advantages of Scopus and Web of Science publication, the indexing itself, and very nicely you have discussed regarding the impact factor. What is impact factor and how can we calculate the impact factor? That is another very interesting and important thing to understand. I believe there are different things which needs to be cleared, and you very nicely covered that how can we differentiate between the Scopus and the impact factor, the Web of Science journals, and what we need to consider in order to have better understanding of these two databases, why these two databases are more important in order to publish, and what are the advantages of it. Thank you very much, and I really enjoyed the way you just answered that what are the different mistakes we do it. And we have one question regarding that. There is one question which is a very, I think, important one. They want to ask that, Prof, when you started your publication process, would you like to share with us what common mistakes or pitfalls you experienced, and what is your recommendation for us as a beginner researcher? Yes, please.
On that issue, you always have to check, of course, the history of the journal, so that will not be uh, so that you'll be able to, of course, be aware of those problems. And another, of course, it is very important to check the indexing of the journal, whether that is indexed in Web of Science, but still you have to check if what is the history of the those processes which is being done in that house. So it's very important to check everything.
Yes, Prof. Thank you very much for very nicely suggesting that what things needs to be considered, and you have very nicely said that everything should be considered before even publication. And now another important question they want to ask about the ethical consideration. So the question they want to ask that what ethical considerations do I need to keep in mind when writing a paper for potential indexing in these databases? Yes, please.
In terms of ethical consideration, it's very important that they should follow, of course, the peer review process, of course, and of course, the author have to understand the evaluation process because sometimes it is really it takes a lot of time to review to validate if the paper really meets the standard of the journal, whether it will be accepted or rejected. So you have to, and the author must understand that there's a lot of process that it should undergo. So they have to see that if the longer process that they have encountered, the better that which is because it is really uh, scholarly in those kind of processes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prof. Really very nice answer. And one last question, Prof, regarding the peer review. They want to ask that, Prof, would you like to share with us, is there any difference between Scopus and Web of Science, the peer review process, or is it the same? Yes, please.
On that part, Scopus and Web of Science, they're really strict in terms of submission and peer review process because sometimes even you have already submitted and met the requirements, sometimes there are some tendencies sometimes that they will reject your paper. Sometimes they will put a remarks that your paper has been conditionally accepted, provided that you have to follow the template. But if they are not really satisfied with your work, sometimes they will totally decline or reject your paper. But uh, it's really important to check things. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Froilan. I really enjoyed this wonderful session. I love the way you just comprehend everything in a very wonderful way, and I like the way you just explain in a very short, in a wonderful time management as well. Uh, as you know that we ask for the message at the end of the session. So, what is your message this time for our audience that they needs to consider and they need to understand? So please, your message to the world for this time. Yes, please.
So my message is that hopefully that all authors and scholars they would be able to understand the processes of peer review and other publication, and of course how do we select good indexing in terms of Scopus and Web of Science, because if you will be able to accidentally submit it in a predatory journal, it will totally of course uh, give problems on your part as an author. It will be also.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prof. And I really enjoyed this one. And to the audience, that please do follow our distinguished guest speaker through his research work, and you can email him for future learning and guidance. He's very generous and always ready to help the people. Moreover, a wonderful explanation and powerful content which the great speaker has already elaborated will help you to learn and develop your understanding regarding the different two databases, the Scopus and the Web of Science. What are the advantages and how can you publish over there, and what are the requirements for that? That's all we have time for today. And thank you once again, Professor Dr. Froilan Mobo, for your time and accepting our invitation. So kind of you. And I would like to thank our audience who joined us. Thank you all for your support and liking our session. Stay tuned as many sessions are on the way. Please do not miss any session. Until next session, take care of yourself. Bye bye.